Hello, kia ora, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us for our weekend weather update and the outlook for next week, recorded on Friday, July the 12th. And our enormous area of high pressure is still with us, but the centre of it now starting to move offshore. This is a huge high pressure system, and it did break the national record in New Zealand, according to NIWA, on Tuesday night. Before it, the highest ever air pressure recorded in New Zealand was in Wellington in 1889, 135 years ago, at 1045.9, and this one went to 1046.5. So a little bit higher, but it broke a record that was 135 years standing. It doesn't mean a great deal for most of you. It just meant more blue skies and lighter winds for most places. That's what high pressure does. But we've got this other low out here. Now, this other low is a little bit unusual because it's forming within the high pressure zone, and it's also driving in a colder change, and that colder change will start first of all in the eastern North Island, and then it's going to spread down to the South Island and other areas. We don't usually get a cold change that starts in the north and goes southwards, but it came around this high, and even though it looks like an easterly and is an east to southeasterly, it's kind of a southerly, really. It's a southerly out of the Southern Ocean that's turned around and come in as an easterly. Now this high, you can see the big white area here. That is the central part of it. But it actually goes all the way up, and you can see the edges of it all the way around here. That is all part of the same high pressure zone going up to the Cook Islands, to Fiji, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, close to Australia, and well down next to Antarctica. So that's why you're hearing so much about this high pressure zone. Now, temperatures this morning, because of that high pressure system, Omarama down to -8. That was the coldest or lowest we saw, but there were a few -9s here and there in more isolated areas, and the frosty weather went all the way as far north as Auckland, parts of Howick, Botany, seeing that temperature drop below 0 degrees. And there's still a chance of some more frost. In fact, you can just see a little bit of blue here around the Bombay Hills of Auckland. And there is even, it doesn't really show much of a risk for Waikato, but you could still get a frost. The reason why the frost map's not sure is because there's just a little bit of a breeze picking up, and that might just be enough to keep it away. But I would still say in some very sheltered areas, you could still see a frost further north. But what you might notice is the South Island frost risk expands as we go into the weekend, and that's because that colder airflow out of the North Island starts to slide down over the South Island. So here's how we look this evening. This is 8 o'clock Friday. Southeasterly winds coming in here to the eastern side of the North Island, bringing a few showers. Let's animate the next 24 hours. You'll see that showery weather, and it starts to slide down the island and then further into the upper part of the South Island. It's not very much. There's not going to be very much rain falling, but it could be fairly cold and cloudy and miserable for some of you along the eastern side of the country as we go through the weekend. But of course, it's a bit like a reverse nor'wester for some of you here around Waikato. Temperature-wise, on Saturday, you'll feel that colder weather on the eastern side. We'll show you the temperature map in a second, but you'll feel that colder weather coming in here. And as we go through the day, that colder airflow, which is caught up in here, coming up and around the high pressure system, is going to start to slide down the eastern side of the North Island. So that's why your temperatures are about to drop. But on the other side, because of the mountains and ranges here in the east, that's why we call it a bit of a reverse nor'wester, because it's a southeasterly flow. The wet weather's on the eastern side, sunniest weather will be over here in the west. So here are the temperatures. Look at Waikato, up to 16 degrees. That's above average for this time of the year. In fact, most of the 16s and 14s are all a degree or two above normal. And yet to more normal temperatures, the lower down you go and along the eastern side of New Zealand. So Sunday's setup sees that pool of cold air sliding down around the South Island. It's not for everybody, but the eastern areas are going to be feeling it the most. The low up here, nothing to really worry about. But this is the next storm system to keep a close eye on, because this weekend it deepens as it moves around Tasmania or close to it, drives in a wintry change for them. And once we go into next week, you can kind of see why this is quite a big system to keep an eye on. Now, it's going to produce severe weather in Australia, as you can see. Got severe gales, snow, and a bit of rain around with that setup, and also some dangerous sea conditions. But our big powerful high has not moved very much. It is only just south of the Chathams. So that colder airflow starting to drop away a wee bit now, but you've still got it coming into the South Island in particular. Might warm up a degree or two for the north, and the rain from that low kind of detaches, starts to come on in, and now we're talking about subtropical winds starting to come down for parts of New Zealand. So next week is going to be milder for New Zealand than this week has been, especially the overnight temperatures. You'll notice that maybe more than the daytime ones. As that cloud comes through and the breeze, it means frosts aren't going to be quite as likely. And this is a subtropical line of weather coming through here. Meanwhile, winter over here. And in fact, a good note or interesting thing to note next week in Australia, this does not happen very often, but for their ski fields like Thredbo, which is probably one of the more famous areas of Australia for if you're into snow, Thredbo has got snow in the forecast next week for about 4 or 5 days. Here in Queenstown and surrounding areas, we are not forecasting snow at this stage for next week. So that doesn't happen very often, that Aussies are the one getting snow for a week and we're not. But that is just the way it goes. We're on the warmer side of things. There will be a little bit of snow on the tops of the mountains, but not down to the lower levels, not at this stage anyway. And if this model stays correct, because this is now getting up to nearly a week away, the low here could still move around a wee bit, and that will change and alter whether or not that rain band is sitting there next Thursday or not. And another part, I mentioned the other day, highs breathe like lungs. So it breathes in, it expands out. Breathes out, it shrinks. And so if this system gets a little bit stronger, it can push back and keep that rain further away or further to the north. So that's why at this early stage, it's a little hard to lock in. But we are not seeing much in the way of snow just yet. Things dry out in Australia, and here comes the next storm for them. After 6 months of very quiet weather, the stormy stuff is waking up, and we're on the edge of that. So we will be part of some of these low pressure zones as they move on through. But for next week, milder winds coming down out of the subtropics means we are not going to be quite as cold as we've been this week. Let's have a look at the rainfall for the next 7 days and one animation. Now, like I just said, the high out to the east will make a difference as to whether or not this rain lines up along the eastern side of the country next week. There's still a question mark on that, but we are expecting some rain into the north of the country here, and there could be some heavy falls, especially in these areas where it goes to the purple shading. That's up to 100 millimetres. But like I say, this is not 100% locked in. Keep up to date with your local rain forecast we've got on our website, our app, and also, of course, the rainfall maps that we've got to try and make sense of it all. But that is all from me for this week. Hope you've had a great week. I'll see you again on Monday.